Playing a game is a great opportunity for us to talk to the public in an unintimidating environment where they can do things on their own terms. We want to make sure the user has the same experience in games as when they drive the vehicle in real life. We don't want to see the cars flipping over or catch fire for unknown reasons. We would never appear in a Burnout game.
Good, I say. Because if you've ever wondered why people bang on about this franchise, or why Criterion hasn't been able to retain its magic even when copying its formula, this is the culprit. Almost every EA franchise may have shameless product placement, be it their own games, peripherals, or overpriced restaurants. But Burnout lacked the most common one of all in its genre: the cars. While this was arguably done due to the franchise's original publisher being on its way to bankruptcy, considering the words of Mr. Manager, official licenses would never have been granted, giving Criterion the freedom to innovate the genre to a point where it attracted even those who don't normally play racing games with its third installment, Takedown, published by Electronic Arts. The subtitle came from being able to take down the opposition, and being rewarded with an increased boost gauge for doing so, and accounting for the inevitable question of what happens when the player themselves is taken out with Aftertouch. In the press of a button, players could steer their wrecked car into the competition, creating gameplay where none had previously existed. It gave a whole new element not just to racing, but its new game mode Road Rage and Crash mode from its predecessor, which itself got a unique feature in the Crash Breaker, allowing you to blow up your vehicle for extra credits and satisfaction. Burnout 3 Takedown is one of the most fondly remembered games of its generation, and easily one of the best. But its sequel, released the following year, is my personal favorite. Burnout Revenge is a game I still haven't found a replacement for. I've long since accepted Gran Turismo Sport's departure from its roots, as Forza Horizon has more than satisfied my car collection fixation. Dirt Rally successfully carried on the Colin McRae series with far more sophistication and challenge, but nothing satisfied my thirst for adrenaline the way Revenge did, and playing it today explained why. What stands out through a modern lens immediately is just how nimble Burnout's vehicles are. You'll control heftier machines in Crash mode, but the majority of vehicles are done with sports and supercars that make a Lotus Exige look like a sumo wrestler on wheels. That's not to say they're weak. Oh no. They've got just enough weight to give power slides a sense of danger every time you tap the brakes, risking a spin or collision. But the key is that you're almost never in a situation that's inescapable. Hands grasp the controller tightly to swerve past oncoming traffic, rather than accepting the inevitable before it's happened. You feel responsible for crashes as a result, making any aggression directed at yourself, not the game. And because of Aftertouch from the previous installment, you're still able to play even during a wreck. Aftertouch's potential is fully realized even when Crash Breakers from Takedown's Crash mode appear in other events, letting you take out multiple racers with the press of a button. Even in its fourth entry, the series hadn't stopped building upon each game, nor delivering innovation, and the one found in Revenge is, to my knowledge, exclusive to this day. One of the most common obstacles in gaming is traffic, from Need for Speed to Grand Theft Auto, and rarely has this been toyed with, especially when games concern themselves with immersion. Revenge is one of those exceptions, with what it calls traffic checking. Standard-sized vehicles traveling in your direction can be slammed with only a meager loss of speed, rolling like a marble. On paper, this sounds vapid, trading spectacle for the loss of tension felt in gameplay, but in fact, it adds more for a variety of reasons. Burnout's incredible sense of speed is at its best in confined spaces with traffic, and with this addition, it allows Criterion to positively pack every freeway. Whether you're paving a pathway through traffic or narrowly missing vehicles, it feels like you're going that much faster with so many slower vehicles consistently within arm's reach, and this makes traffic you're unable to shove terrifying. It's such a rush to feel nigh unstoppable, only to be struck by an opponent and on the verge of death in the opposite lane within a split second. That same fear can be felt when checking traffic at top speed, only to recognize a freight truck, tanker, or bus is in your way. Luckily, you can sometimes be saved by traffic you've hit, as it becomes a weapon you can use against these larger threats, as well as fellow drivers. The takedowns themselves are more satisfying than ever before, with superior sound, more on that later, and camera work that lets you see the impact almost immediately. And Crash Breakers are a riot, but checking traffic into an opponent never fails to put a grin on my face. It's intoxicating to deny someone an overtake by flinging the nearest sedan at their rear end, but it's also a rush to be the receiver. Being at top speed is so much more exciting when a piece of traffic rolls into view and you know with just a few more feet, you'd be flying off the road in bullet time. Though as we've established, there's engaging gameplay for you to participate in, should that occur. Everything's connected. Revenge has all the pressure of navigating a course with competition inherent to the genre, but with a system sandbox directly integrated. Enemies taken out by traffic isn't automated, scripted, or even manipulated from what I can gather. You don't press a button to lock on and fire a device to chip at a health bar. You look for a window of opportunity to use what's on the track against your opponent. The final piece to this eclectic puzzle are the tracks that now feature more verticality and complexity than ever before, built to maximize this sandbox. What I love about the shortcuts in this game is that even they have more depth than the traditional arcade racer. On courses like Angel or Eternal City, shortcuts have the potential to be as deadly as they are beneficial if you're not quick enough to navigate their narrow routes, with architecture and objects that'll instantly destroy your car. There's a variety to them. Reviewers at the time mentioned how shortcuts were made to have players decide between earning boost on the road or progressing down an empty path that's quicker, and while that's true, it doesn't convey the full story. Some shortcuts lead into one another. Some are completely flat, others are vertical enough to earn hefty amounts of boost from airtime. These also have the potential to lead into an expanded component of takedowns, where they can be earned vertically. It's rare and easier to strategize with on smaller gaps rather than big jumps, but that only makes their occurrence more spectacular. Just like no 2 kills in Max Payne 3 or 2 games in Siege are the same, neither are 2 takedowns in Revenge. I can't use the easy trick of editing animations together to make for a smooth transition, but that's a small price to pay for gameplay that thrills this consistently. I firmly believe Revenge's crashes and their influence on gameplay is unparalleled to this day. Cars don't just roll with dents and scratches that ensure the shape of the vehicle remains recognizable according to corporate demand. Entire chunks of bodywork are detached, the front end can cease to exist. Explosions send shockwaves knocking back any vehicle within its radius with sparks, debris, or in the case of Rivals, another explosion. Your crashes are all the more entertaining by the fact they magnetize high-speed traffic, potentially even taking out rivals beyond your control. And all of this devastating but in-depth design is decorated in superb presentation. As hinted earlier, the sound design in this game is astonishing. I'm pretty certain the base of its explosions are responsible for damaging my TV's built-in speakers. The engines from the supercharged whine of a mid-engine exotic or the heavy bass of a menacing V8, these engines combine with the sound of boost and brutal impacts that's just magical. If there's ever a game that will justify an expensive sound setup, this is it. Almost every detail, from the thick whoosh of dodging traffic to the scraping metal and the ambience of impact time, is just beautiful, and a big part of how this game manages to be as thrilling as it is. The other part is the rest of the game's presentation. The sound design combined with the game's superior camera work, effects, and even the consistently grungy style of the menus, tutorials, and videos bathes this game in a perverted joy. They even removed the obnoxious DJ from Takedown and replaced him with the actress who'd go on to be Faith and Cora, narrating each tutorial with a femme fatale voiceover, adding to the sense of wickedness. I love this game, in the past, and delightfully, in the present. It's held up like few ever have or will, with superb presentation, unappreciated depth, and gameplay that remains unmatched in what it accomplishes to this day. And now that I've successfully overhyped it, let's bring this down to earth. For as much as I'd love to only gush about this game, it's got problems. Firstly, the World Tour mode is needlessly complex in appearance while being restrictive in function. You earn stars that contribute to your rank that, once increased, unlocks a new selection of events. Yet you can access earlier ranks at any time regardless of vehicle, making it seem like a misnomer. Said vehicles present another problem in Revenge, and that's while the racing itself has lots of depth thanks to its set of systems that spice up the events, vehicles don't feel unique from one another. And it's made worse by the fact that higher tier vehicles are just earlier ones with performance upgrades and body kits. It's as visually repetitive as it is through gameplay, to which its superb tracks are also a contributing factor. For as much as I believe in quality over quantity, in a game with this many events, it's hard to ignore going through the same layouts over and over and over again. There's a few gameplay quibbles too. Crash mode's great and a much needed diversion, but one of the most frustrating things about the aftertouch system is its lack of camera control. For some reason, moving the vehicle and rotating your view can't be done at the same time, making it much harder to strategize and adapt when you're stuck with a bad camera angle. Then there's a scoring system that on paper sounds like a great addition. Similar to combo meters in action games that reward skillful play with unlocks, but it's not executed very well in Revenge. The meter's too easy to maximize in modes like Road Rage, meanwhile traffic attack seems actively rigged against you, making 5-star runs come down to planning when you're going to kill time so that you can earn the full rating. Actually, this leads into a problem with the whole series. There's no option to end an event when you've earned gold. I get that some want to maximize scores, and trust me, I fall into a rhythm of smashing cars beyond the requirement just for fun. But there should be at least an option to end the event so that you don't have to wait 30 to 40 seconds to move on. Speaking of wasting time, Grand Prix tournaments give the same amount of stars as a single race without bonuses, which is just ludicrous, and made me skip them almost entirely. And then there's my really nitpicky complaints with the Xbox 360 version. Don't get me wrong, overall it's the definitive edition of the game with sharper textures, better lighting, and entirely enhanced sound design. But I'm not a fan of the new boost wind-up effect. It just stands out too much to be a sound that's played hundreds of times over the course of the game. The post-race screen is a downgrade, lacking the impactful sound effects and taking longer to get through. And while the soundtrack in Revenge is pretty good for the most part, on the 360 the track list is playing even during loading screens. It doesn't feel integrated within the experience. Songs can be on their full epic chorus while you're flipping through menus and subsequently ending just as you've taken out an opponent. Though, this did give me license to play my hypothetical soundtrack for this game's imaginary sequel, and have the time of my life. I'll link it in the description so you can judge away while playing. Personally, I don't think you've experienced this game to its fullest until you've played it with Ghost or Motorhead. But even without its enhanced online features due to closed servers, and my nitpicks, it's still the definitive edition, and for those with an Xbox One, backwards compatible, which is perfect as it doesn't feel like a 13-year-old game. The frame rate rarely dips below 60, has an unmatched sense of speed, and controls like a dream. But that's not to say the Xbox or PS2 versions are slouches. They've held up extremely well too, and of course, can be run through emulators to this day. It is a bit annoying having to switch between software mode and menus and hardware mode and gameplay to avoid black skyboxes, but other than that, it's the closest you'll ever get to a proper PC port. A platform the last Burnout entry was re-released for, and really was the first acknowledgement of the franchise by EA since its release. Criterion might have thought they'd be better off working with a more popular brand in Need for Speed, and it even worked with the revival of Hot Pursuit, but EA's driving franchises used to complement each other. Need for Speed was about realizing fantasies with the best pieces of reality. Exotic supercars, unique locations, and the police in pursuit. But Burnout's about taking fantasies to their extreme without a hint of reality to pull them back. It demonstrated what a developer in genre is capable of without licenses, managers, or oversized budgets. It took one of the industry's smallest niches and allowed anyone to invest themselves in it. Thing is, the franchise hasn't achieved everything it could yet. There's still places for it to go. Personally, I always thought while Criterion strive for depth in design, they didn't pay as much attention to letting players express themselves out of gameplay. I mean, Revenge and Hot Pursuit don't even have a quick play option. There's room to let players customize vehicles, create game modes, and fine-tune their experience through difficulty and modifiers. It's a brand with plenty of life within it, if given the chance. And while everything else might be bogged down in this complex world of licensing, managers, and exchanges, EA's sitting on a brand that has the capability to forego all of that, and make something that could truly push this genre forward. Or at the very least, remind us what we've lost. I couldn't fit this within the video, so here's a very brief section on a hidden gem within this franchise. Back in the day, I ignored Burnout Dominator for the PS2, thinking it was just some lazy port of a PSP game done to make the most out of the PS2's enormous install base. And while that probably was the reason for its existence, it's actually an excellent game in its own right. Treating the franchise like a buffet with elements from Revenge like Crash Breakers and Racing, to Burnout 2 with its unique boost meter that can be refilled indefinitely with enough risks. It wasn't given the full opportunity to shine due to a lack of crash mode or significant multiplayer, but it's got a variety of events and vehicles, and for those who've already exhausted Takedown, Revenge, and Paradise, delivers more Burnout. And that's all I'm looking for. Also, Burnout's original creative director, Alex Ward, has his own studio called Three Fields Entertainment, who've already made their own spiritual successor to Crash Mode, and are currently working on an arcade racing title called Dangerous Driving. The voice you heard at the start of this video is my friend Clue, someone that regulars of the Russian Badger are likely familiar with, but he's been making content of his own relatively recently, and I'd highly recommend his video on Hunt Showdown, as it's very well crafted and does the game far more justice than I ever could. Now, due to this side note, I only have time for one question, so it's gonna be the most important one yet. What's your favorite spider? A warp spider!